Hi guys, so Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, released her ministerial statement on borders and asylum on Monday, where she talked about a number of different issues. But the main takeaway, of course, is her instruction to judges to interpret Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights in a different way. Have a listen to this.
So as we committed in the Immigration White Paper, we will shortly set out more radical reforms to modernise the asylum system and to boost our border security, tackling the pull factors, strengthening enforcement, making sure people are treated fairly, reforming the way that the ECHR is interpreted here at home, speeding up the system, cutting numbers and ending the use of hotels, and developing controlled and managed routes for genuine refugees. At the heart of these reforms will be a complete overhaul of the appeals system, the biggest obstacle to reducing the size of the asylum system and to ending hotel use. Because tens of thousands of people in asylum accommodation are currently waiting for appeals, and under the current system that figure is to grow, with an average wait time already of 54 weeks. So we have already funded thousands of additional sitting days this year, and the Border Security Bill will introduce a statutory timeframe of 24 weeks, but we need to go further. So we will introduce a new independent body to deal with immigration and asylum appeals, fully independent of government, staffed by professionally trained adjudicators with safeguards to ensure high standards, but able to surge capacity as needed to accelerate and prioritise cases, alongside new procedures to tackle repeat applications and unnecessary delays. We're also increasing detention and returns capacity, including a 1,000-bed expansion at Campsfield and Haslar, with the first tranche of additional beds coming online within months, to support many thousands more in forced removals each year. And our reforms will also address the overly complex system for family migration, including changes to the way that Article 8 of the ECHR is interpreted. We should be clear, international law is important. It is because other countries know that we abide by it that we have been able to make these new agreements with France to return people who arrive on small boats, to make new agreements with Germany to stop the warehousing of small boats by criminal gangs, and to explore returns hubs partnerships with other European countries. But we also need the interpretation of international law to keep up with the realities and challenges of today's world. But there is one area where we also need to make more immediate challenges. The current rules for family reunion for refugees were designed many years ago to help families separated by war, conflict and persecution. But the way they are now being used has changed. Even just before the pandemic, refugees who applied to bring family to the UK did so on average more than 1 or 2 years after they had been granted protection, long enough for them to be able to get jobs or find housing or be able to provide their family with some support. In Denmark and Switzerland, currently those granted humanitarian protection are not able to apply to bring family for at least 2 years after protection has been granted. But here in the UK now, however, those applications come in on average in around a month after protection has been granted, often even before a newly granted refugee has left asylum accommodation. As a consequence, refugee families who arrive are far more likely to be seeking homelessness assistance. And some councils are finding that more than a quarter of their family homelessness applications are linked to refugee family reunion. That is not sustainable. Currently, there are also no conditions on family reunion for refugee sponsors, unlike those in place if the sponsor is a British citizen or a long-term UK resident, and that is not fair. Finally, the proportion of migrants who have arrived on small boats and who then apply to bring family has also increased sharply in recent years, with signs that smuggler gangs are now able to use the promise of family reunion to promote dangerous journeys to the UK. Mr. Speaker, we continue to believe that family...
Okay, so just to highlight a few points here. Now, it seems to be the case of using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. We're talking about very small numbers of people coming in respect to immigration as a whole. Remember, the small boat crossings represent about 5%. Now, other people come in via different routes, but we're talking about a very small percentage of the overall immigration numbers. So really, this is taking a very hard approach to maybe something that isn't a huge problem. Now, what she's talking about, of course, is people who are claiming asylum and then bringing their families with them. And she highlighted other countries that don't allow people to come in for 2 years and how in the UK people are doing that. She also mentioned homelessness here, that refugees end up homeless because in many cases, when their claim is processed, they're dumped out onto the street. So many of them have to claim support from the council because they don't have the time to get a job, to get into rented accommodation, or to move on with their lives. So a lot of refugees who are successful, or asylum seekers who are successful, end up on the street because they don't have the support necessary to get a job and to get into regular housing. Remember, asylum seekers are not allowed to work, so it's difficult to get a career if you haven't been working for a long period of time. Now, this is, once again, it's a changing to the interpretation of the law. So this is not a withdrawal from the European Convention on Human Rights. It's not even changes to Article 8. This is encouraging judges or requesting judges interpret Article 8 in a different way. Now, I don't know if this is actually going to succeed. I'm not a legal scholar, but it will be perhaps up to the individual judges to decide whether a case is legitimate or not. And this is the way it should be. It should be up to the judges. The judges view case-by-case basis and they decide this person is legit or not. For the government to try and force this through, I think is going to create problems. Either many people will not get the support they need, or judges will be forced into a position where they're looking over their shoulder, in some cases literally, when it comes to political pushback. We saw it before when it came to Brexit, right-wing newspapers hounding judges because they disagreed with Boris Johnson and the Conservatives back in the day. So if the responsibility now falls on judges to interpret individual cases in a particular way or in a way that the government doesn't like, this could create a massive backlash. This could be a case of offloading responsibility from government onto judges. And this is something that the Tories would be doing. We wouldn't be expecting this from Yvette Cooper and the Labour Party. Now, I don't know yet what the judges will say in response to this, whether they will interpret it as before or they will take on board these new requests. But it does seem, once again, a case of using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, because there's a huge amount of political capital being invested in small boats. And the more the Labour Party talk about this, the more they're helping Nigel Farage. And the more they seem to try and act tough, while they may think that it's going to keep Farage at bay, or people may think, well, maybe the Labour Party is doing something right on immigration. I'm not going to vote for Nigel Farage after all. It doesn't really work like that, because if the Labour Party move in a particular direction, all Farage has to do is move further to the right and say, well, yeah, I would actually deny these people access to the asylum system, whatever. I wouldn't even create a delay, or I would deny anyone who is trying to bring family in, I would deny them asylum, or he would create more obstacles which would appeal to people who are quote unquote concerned about immigration. Labour cannot win this battle. And I fear acting tough is only going to help Farage, and it's also going to harm people who have a legitimate claim. There are a lot of people who don't have legitimate claims. They have to be processed and they have to be deported. But people who have a legitimate claim, the tougher you are with them, the more people will fall through the cracks. And if you create barriers, this is the biggest thing to take away from this. If you create barriers for people to bring their families in, what do you think is going to happen? The families are going to cross the channel in small boats. So if people are determined to be united with their families, they're going to find alternative routes than the legal ones. That's the problem. And we've already seen that when it came to the Tories getting tough on the visa system. What did it do? It forced people to find alternatives. And Labour are seeing the same. The net migration figure has come down. The number of people applying for visas to go to universities, to work, whatever, has come down also. But a lot of people are taking an alternative route, and that, of course, is crossing the channel in a small boat. So if you see the numbers rising, it's in part because people are looking for another way in, because the legal route has been shut down. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this, and I'll see you in the next video.